tasked to not only run the plant, but troubleshoot it and repair it as well. Instead of the days of you have an I&C crew, an I&E crew, an automation guy, and the operators. It seems like they're trying to mold all of that into one person. So one day, the person that operates the plant maybe also be the programmer too that you have to work with.
Yeah. How many good programmers have come out from IEC?
A few that I know of.
Do you think that's a good transition, or do you think it comes from like electrician to a technician, then to a programmer?
I mean, I've seen decent programmers come from being parking attendants. I mean, I think mostly if you got the mindset, you can think logically, you have the desire to learn about what's really going on behind the scenes, and you're interested, you're curious, you have a desire to, hey, I want to make this do this, and I know the right people to call to help me get over these hurdles. I think there's a lot of potential for electricians, operators, parking attendants to do a lot of really cool stuff in the automation world.
Yeah. You know what? One group of people that I don't see coming down to the plant floor level programming. Well, maybe I could be wrong, but it's all the .NET and Java programmers. As soon as they come down, it's like, what is this crap? What? And I get it. First of all, how many times have you been asked what kind of programming language do you use? And when you tell them ladder logic, they go, wait a second, I'm a full stack programmer. I have never heard that before.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you from my experience that I have a data science guy that works for me, and we were doing this function block for MicroLogix 800, and I wanted it all done in structured text, and because I wanted a lot of diagnostic data to come out of it, and we were going to be handling a lot of strings, and it's a lot easier to read it through structured text and do stuff like that. What was funny was when I was showing him how to do it in ladder, he almost looked at me and said, "You're an asshole." I said, "Well, but it doesn't give all the diagnostics data that we want out of it." He's like, that took 5 minutes to do in ladder. I've been working on this for 8 hours and I'm not done, sniffing out all the, ifs and thens and whiles and all that stuff. So
right. Interesting.
it's pretty interesting.
Yeah. We find ourselves just doing only the basic stuff inside of ladder, like controlling valves or controlling motors or whatever the case is, but everything else we kind of switched over to either a function block or an AOI or whatever the case is, and then the rest of anything complex, whatever the case is, we just been doing structured text. But LinkedIn is still bound by a bunch of people discussing whether ladder logic is still, whether it needs to be there, not needs to be there anyway. So,
well, I'm on the fence. So I believe that they both have their right in the areas, because you need to be able to have the electrician that's working on it in the middle of the night. He needs that visual cue to kind of see what's going on with it, where he may not have the experience to go and dig through the tags and look through what's going on and understand, oh, this bit of this word is telling me what's going on with it, where a rung being lit up or not being lit up can tell him right there.
Right. I guess one of my arguments is that I'm not sure if we need people to look inside the PLC code anymore. And I know I'm going to get a lot of flack for this, but in my mind, what I want a plant floor technician to look like is just a guy who's got safety glasses, steel toe shoes, and maybe a hard hat and his cell phone. No, that's it. That's all I want him to have. No voltmeter, no nothing. He should be able to open a panel up. If their fuse was blown, it should be an LED indicator light on it. He should be just starting and stopping stuff. He can use a cell phone for like looking at AutoCAD files. But yeah, get him outside of not touching it. But that's a dream of a technician. But anyway.
Well, you understand, anytime the machine breaks, it's the PLC code that went bad, right?
Of course, yeah. So
it's never the solenoid on the actuator that went out. No. I'm sure something's wrong.
I mean, that
PLC.
depends on. Yeah, right. Well, and that depends on which technician shows up at the machine. So if it's a bunch of welders or machinists, and of course they're looking at, anyways, you'd always get arguments on that. But one thing is, I'm quite surprised on some people are really gifted on the ability to take a machine and have it last for so long, even though it should have died, 10, 20 years ago.
Yep. There's a few machines that I wish I had pictures I could share with you that I don't know why they're still here. They were built back in the 70s. They're still operating today. And I ask them all the time, hey, what are you going to do when that component finally dies? And they're, well, you don't know. We're going to lose that line until we get it fixed.
What is the, let me ask this. What is the big deal with dragging out things to utter complete? I mean, like, men in typical bad economies will not. I don't know why this is, but they'll write out how much their underwear out. They will stop buying underwear. They'll stop buying socks. I mean, they do these things, maybe to save some money, whatever the case is. But it just seems like manufacturing plants just take it to a whole new level.
Well, I think there's a few things that cause that. One is you have a disconnect between, and there's a disconnect between accounting and operations. Accounting seems to always be what drives the operations of the business. Hey, you need to tighten the purse strings. We need to add that extra 0.5% to the bottom line. Well, then that correlates to the maintenance manager. Hey, instead of replacing that fuse, can you put some aluminum foil around it and make it work? I mean, I think there's a big deal of that. And just the idea of kind of, not to get into anything too political, it's, our generation is a throwaway generation. They don't maintain stuff. Hey, I'm supposed to be doing maintenance on this. I'm supposed to be changing oil on this pump. I didn't even know that. Pump's been running for 5 years, and they're wondering why it finally locked up.
Every time I see a hydraulic unit, I always have this imaginary thought process that there's a guy who's smoking a cigarette and he's just putting his ashes into the tank, the hydraulic tank. And I don't know why, but that's kind of like every single time I see one of these old hydraulic units, that's kind of what it looks like.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, you've seen all the pictures on LinkedIn of, look at this control panel, and it's the wiring in it is bird nested out, because every time an electrician comes in, he pops the Panduit off, pulls the wire out, finds what's broken, leaves it that way, and goes on about shuts the door on it and goes on about his day. Because the extra 20 minutes to put everything back, clean it up, label it, it just, he doesn't care. I mean, there's a little bit of a mindset too that has to change within the industry to fix some of these things.
Right. Have you ever been to a plant where you've been told not, if you do open it up, don't touch anything because it'll fail?
Oh yeah.
Because I've been I was on third shift. They told me not to do it, but I opened up the panel, and of course I'm not, I had nothing to work on, so I just started tightening screws just to, and sure enough, the whole plant comes down because I'm not hearing anything, any kind of noise. So I go outside of the control room, and sure enough, it's like all these maintenance guys are like looking at me going, "What did you just do?"
Nothing.
Of course,
I was
like
torquing the screw the terminals down.
it was torquing that stuff down. It was cleaning up the wireway, zip tying a couple of these bundles of wire because they were just pulled outside of the waterway and just scattered like spaghetti. It was just a mess. But I did all of that, and it went right back to working. So I learned my lesson.
Don't touch it. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
But I mean, is that what American manufacturing has become? You blow on it and it breaks.
Yeah. And then this plant in particular, they would only shut down during holidays, and so it was double pay, and it was just it was a mess, and you only had so much time. Right. Yeah. Just run everything. Like I said, run it to the bitter end. But over and over again, I see it countless times. I get that there's a cost to actually taking something out of an assembly line and actually installing say if it was a filler, say if it was a capper, say if it was whatever the case is. But, it doesn't take very long to be able to walk on a production floor and be going, this has been here way longer than it should have been. And it's just time to bite the bullet. A lot of times these are plants that actually don't have OEE and are calculating about how much downtime these things are costing. So that's one thing. But the maintenance guy kind of does know what works and what does not work in a plant. So I don't know why they're not listening to this guy. And just ask a simple question: is what is the machine that you hate the most and goes down the most? And let's just agree with that guy and just say, I'm going to here's Merry Christmas. I will swap out that piece of hardware. It probably won't be a bad process.
Well, and what I've been seeing a lot of too, like there's a factory here that I do a little work in every once in a while. I'm the guy that comes in, and I'm the in between the machine builder and them, so that they can get the machine back up and going. Why is there such an inconsistency of how machines are built for a factory? Like they might buy a capper from company X and it's AB. Company C sells Siemens. Company F, they're trying to do it with an Arduino board. And
please tell me that there's not like some kind of it's like goes to terminals that you don't have like one of those
it's truly a prototype board, and they're wanting it to be industrial.
Okay.
No, I have not seen that yet, but there's going to come a day where somebody tries that.
Yeah. I used to work with a guy who this is before Raspberry Pis, but what he would do is he wouldn't go into the PLC program, but what he would do is he would take some of the signals from the sensors, and then he would modify that in a processing chip. And then what he would do is he just resin the whole thing, have wires dangling out of it. Say if you want to put it like a delay on a sensor. So that's how he would do it. But then what he'd do is he would tape it with electrical tape, and he would stick it kind of in a corner inside of the conveyor, which nobody would see, and life goes on. But that same guy worked there at the plant for 30 years. So a lot of these little balls of logic are scattered around the plant. So those are always little treats for you to look for.
It's called job security. That's what that is. Nobody will know how to. They'll get some automation company like yourself to come in and work on it, and you'll spend days looking for this function in the code, and you're like, well, what's causing this?
Right.
And then one day you'll be walking by, and he'll go, oh yeah, I got this little thing over here. It does this. You do know you could have done that in the PLC, right?
And rightfully so, but look, if you're a manufacturing plant, it was surprising on how many different brands they had just on the production floor. I mean, if you only had Allen Bradley, it'd be one thing, but it's Siemens, it's everything, and you're getting stuff imported from all different countries, wherever the case is, and so the code is not exactly right. I mean, you might have like $20,000 with just yearly subscription of software alone. And then on top of that, I mean, every laptop's got to be fully loaded with this kind of stuff. So several technicians, lots of software. I mean, it's hard. It would be hard to keep up with that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, could you imagine what it would be like to go to one of the big brand manufacturers in the US and see what their Rockwell support contract looks like global for just the US?
No.
And then, oh, by the way, not only do they have Rockwell, but they have a Siemens contract too. And then
let's do
Schneider
Monicon.
Electric.
Let's do a Monicon. Let's do yeah. Let's do them all, because that's what your plant floor is going to look like.
I mean, how do you, and that's a bigger question too. How do you, with the industry changing as it is, I mean, you're seeing more and more PLCs coming out with not so much their protocol, but say like it'll come with an OPC UA driver communication in it. It'll come with Ethernet IP. It'll come with Profinet. And you just, that is, I think that is a good term that I see in it's just how do you curb the subscription cost for, hey, I need a little help on this drive or this PLC card that's not functioning correctly. I think Rockwell's probably the number one in this category of, we don't even want to support you unless you write us some money every day. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, it's a race to the bottom, right? So you just take a look at for just hardware alone. You are coming. So many different brands are coming out with some very, very powerful PLCs for, I mean, not even just a fraction of the cost. I mean, just outright, just really dirt cheap. And then once you start throwing free software, free support, I've got a lot of YouTube videos for all kinds of different stuff. And then you can connect to anything and everything and blah, blah. And sorry, but the functionality and the flexibility of this kind of stuff, that rings bells for anybody. And so that's a fight. That is a fight. So it's old legacy companies are going to have to battle, and they're going to have to keep up with times. I mean, if you, I mean, both you and I are kind of go back, I don't know when your first PLC programming was, but
like 06, 07. Okay. It was Control Microsystems, the SCADA pack using Telepace. Okay, that was. Now, I did do some PLC programming when I was in college.
Yeah.
But it was, this is how you connect to a MicroLogix. Follow this this program that we've already told you how to.
Yeah,
and
right.
You walked away with really just kind of more questions than answers. I mean, but yeah, I mean, my biggest thing in automation, that the biggest class, and this is what I always push with technicians, learn relay logic. If you can do something with relays, timers, specialty relays that take analog signals, you can program a PLC.
Yeah, and I think you're probably right, because when you do relay logic, you don't want to waste 3,000 relays. So you'll think about it before you spending money on all this. And then you'll have obviously one relay that's completely full. So then you add another one. You're like, okay, yeah. So you're thinking about the process a lot more.
Yeah, and you'll sit down and you'll sketch it out of what you want it to do, because you don't just, hey, I got 300 relays here, I'm just going to start wiring it and see where I land out. No, you're going to sit down. You're going to write it out. You're going to number the wires. You're going to do what you need to do to start wiring up a control panel that has 300 relays in it. And you don't just start wiring and hope and pray on it. Where
Right.
with a PLC, you know what? I can use 1,000,000 coils in here, and you know what? We'll pray that it works.
Yeah. By the way, jumping into the subject, what do you think about latching and unlatching?
Don't get me started on that. I know there's a time and place for latch and unlatch. And yeah.
Well, I
there's
thought
a time and place. Time and place.
Yeah, I thought it. I did not. I had programmers who have never touched ladder logic. I didn't tell them about latching and unlatching, but you know, they're going to click around and they're like, what does this button do? And then sure enough, like it was over. I mean, it was just like code riddled with it. And then, you know, of course, what eventually would happen, which is, and I don't know if you're experienced with this or not, but for us, we've experienced weird phenomena happening with it. Not only is it difficult if you use it poorly, a latch and unlatch poorly, it's troubleshooting is kind of difficult, especially when it starts getting all over the place, especially if you start having multiple latches and multiple unlatches, that kind of stuff. But we had weird random phone calls where we just it just became latched. And so I don't like it just because on that simple thing alone.
Yep. Yeah, and because the condition to unlatch it hasn't came around because of whatever.
Right. But I think if it was you latched it and then the next rung is unlatch, I'd be okay with that. If it was just so close, but if you're unlatching other subroutines, whatever the case is, I don't know. That's what it seems where we get we get late night call outs.
Well, and anytime I'm training someone, I tell them that is the devil, and that don't use it until you have experienced life a little bit. You've been to a couple of places that you know, we don't want to talk about. You have some experience under your belt, then you can throw those L's and U's in there. And so far it seemed to have worked.
Okay.
With the few people that I've trained.
I think on a performance review, I'll add that to my question, how many latches and unlatches have you used in the last year as a programmer? The answer is
it depends on how you reference it.
Yeah.
Because you latch and unlatch a lot of things in your programs.
Yeah.
Maybe they might think about you know, maybe they might misunderstand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Latch and unlatch everything. And in reality, they don't ever use the L or the U. You might miss out on a good programmer. Tripped him up. Or maybe you're looking for that response of, I never use the latch and unlatch functions.
I've kind of at least say I've done everything I can to not use them. I think that's the most correct answer.
Yeah.
Well, then let's jump back a little bit. Let's go up into panel building. So, you know, one of the things that kind of caught me off guard for you is that I do see some of the bigger boys who build panels. They do a lot of repetitive work, and then all of a sudden there's you guys, which you guys like to do a lot of custom work, and
Correct.
Then inside of that, there's guys who do it out of the garage. There's guys who do fancier stuff, and you're definitely on the side of the Cadillac side. So
correct.
Wires are labeled.
What? What? There's other panel shops that don't label wires?
I have in 2 seconds I can show up Google and it shows wires with no wire labels. It's there. It just, and then like 3 wires being landed inside of one, you know, terminal, that kind of stuff, whatever. So you
can't be UL certified if you use there's 3 or 4 wires in one terminal.
These are definitely not certifiable panels. They were affordable initially. I'll say that. But what made you go into more of the Cadillac stuff other than, you know, you want to produce whatever? You was it your customers that were demanding it? Were you just frustrated with taking the short little cuts and that kind of stuff?
It comes from my experience as a technician. When I was a technician, I always hated coming up to a panel. Wires weren't labeled. I had to figure out what kind of funky color code have they come up with.
Yeah.
You know, I like air, and I'm kind of OCD with things. I like every wire to have its place, even if that means you got to use 3 extra terminal blocks to get there. I like everything to be, uh, numbered, definitioned out, to where if I get a phone call in the middle of the night and someone says, "Hey, I need to land this transmitter onto the analog inputs." Well, one of the ways that I build a terminal block that's a little excessive, it can handle, a loop power device, self power device, 1 to 5. You never have to rewire anything in the panel. Just land it on the terminal blocks as needed.
Right.
It's real easy to say, okay, look up the schematics for that particular panel and go, okay, hey, on the analog input slot 3, you're going to find TB 6, 7. Those are going to be the ones you need to land your transmitter on for this type of device. Now, is there a lot of terminal blocks that in our panel builds that may never get used? No. Yes. The correct answer is yes. But more oftenly, what we find is after, especially in oil and gas, is that, hey, we were doing this. We had this PT that we need to split the signal on, and we need to change it from a loop power device to, hey, we don't need it because we're going to put an analog splitter in it so we can share that signal with an ESP. And okay, well, instead of having to rewire the panel, just move the wires to where they need to be. You're done.
Yeah. Right. Well, and how many panels do you ship to where once you get it as a technician, something out in the field's changed from a 2-wire to 4-wire or a 4-wire to 2-wire? So at some level, it made financial sense just to set it up to where it's universal. Who cares, right?
Well, when you're building a panel, I would rather go at a lower margin to be competitive with who we go against, and have that functionality in there. Because at some point in time, technicians can go, "Hey, man, that's really nice. I would rather have this panel here because it changes about 20% of the time."
Right. Right.
Or we know there's an analog signal and we don't know what it's going to be. That's an even bigger one. Do I put an analog card in there that's, hey, this is for loop power device and this is for a non?
Yeah.
Right. Maybe in the plant world you can get away with that because they're,
Yeah, most of the time I try to push for 4 to 20 2-wire, but I mean, I don't get to dictate some sensors. So, what am I going to do? Throw them away? It is what it is. Yeah. My thought was, and this goes back long time ago, because I mean, I don't know what this kind of goes two different topics here, but what terminals do you like to use? And what I would say to that is that, I mean, I'm a big fan of Automation Direct's website because I can order things so quick, so fast. However, their terminal block selection is only kind of limited. My problem was, and this is a perfect example of it, is I wanted I think it was like a 4-layer type of deal to where I can go 2-wire or 4-wire, and it has fuse on the top, whatever it says, and even a ground wire. So I mean, we're talking about a very high technical type of terminal here, and the only options were ABB, AB, Phoenix Contact, Wago. I guess, can you answer both of those questions? Or
so from what I've noticed is I don't think that specific terminal block exists. It takes 2.
I don't know why.
Well, it always exists in a 3-tier, which would be a fused, feed through, and a PE foot,
Right.
or feed through, PE foot. So when we build our panels for analog inputs, it's fuse, feed through, no PE terminal block, And then the next terminal block that's part of that channel is feed through PE foot.
Okay.
And that way, when we do our, whether it's an 8-channel or 16-channel or 4-channel, we jumper the power around. The only thing that you have to do is insert a jumper from the DC negative to the common of the channel. That's it.
Okay.
And then you land it 2-wire. If you need a 3-wire, remove the jumper. You need self power, remove the jumper. Land it in the correct terminal blocks. You're fuse protected, and good to go.
And does that allow you to kind of be flexible on which terminal company you decide to use, or have you standardized on something?
So I'm a little biased in terminals. I'm a big fan of Phoenix Contact. I've used Wago. I've used some of the ABB. I've used the knockoffs of Allen Bradley. What was a real eye opener? We had a customer who was outsourcing their panel builds to us because they were behind, and they were using an AB terminal block, and it wasn't the AB branded terminal block, but they said, "Oh, these are the AB terminal blocks." We had a failure rate of probably 30% of the terminal blocks out of the box on screw terminal.
I mean, wait, failure rate, like what happens? Like, you talking about the screw strips, or what do you?
The screw would gall up, and then which makes the terminal block useless, or you're torquing it down, and then next thing you know, it just never gets tight, or the cage would fall out of the terminal block before we ever even get it mounted on the DIN rail. So we had, Wago's decent. I like Wago terminal blocks. I made the decision to stick with Phoenix. We're also a Phoenix integrator. We use their printers, and I've been dealing with their product for a long time. And I mean, maybe out of the 18 years, I may have had 5 failures in terminal blocks.
Yeah, so they got it. Okay.
And all we ever use is their screw terminal blocks.
You don't use the push in?
We just started using their PT blocks.
Okay.
And I'm going to see how well that goes. In oil and gas, people like to crank the screw down. So we're going to start migrating a little bit.
I wish I had pictures of it, but years ago, electricians are a different breed sometimes, and I had one technician who seemed to be fond of like 90 foot-pounds of torque on screw terminals. So they just get to where they're just like distorted and just like, whatever the case is. And, where you can fuse, copper with the steel into the, anyway, but yeah.
Well, and the other thing too is we do all of our panels are ferruled. We ferrule all of our connections inside. That has also been that's been phenomenal, because we went from in my previous life, I was managing a panel shop for another company, and we would probably have about a 10 to 15% mistermination, which means the screw cage went down on the jacketing and not on the wire itself. And once we moved to ferruling everything, that disappeared overnight.
Yeah.
Even though that we bought the right strippers, and you could set the strippers to the right cut length or strip length, and we would still have misterms on jacketing. I mean, it's amazing what people can figure out how to miss. And you're wiring a panel up that has 1,000 connections in it, and you're gonna miss some.
Right.
So
when I was working back in Nebraska and Iowa, we had the watermiller, where you would
Weidmuller.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Is it Weidmuller or Watermuller?
I'm not sure. It's been too long. But I mean, besides the cost of the actual tool, it seemed pretty slick. And we did do an analysis on it back in the day. We were running into 2 to 4 failures every 1,000 wires we landed.
Yeah.
So that wasn't technically all that bad. We were actually doing doing our some of our labels on our terminals. Anyway, it was a mess. But back in the day, that's what we did. It sounds like, well, I mean, anyways, this is like 22 years ago, so it is what it is. But things have improved. Do you use like terminal labels as well?
Yes.
Okay. So you're essentially your printer kind of prints a lot of this kind of stuff out, right?
Correct. We print the terminal block identification. We print if it's a fuse block, we'll say what size the fuse is. It's in the fuse holder. You know, terminal strip definitions, and all that will link back to a schematic to where if you're on the phone with someone in the middle of the night, you can say, "Hey, find this terminal strip labeled this." Okay, I found that. Okay, look for this TB number in that terminal strip. Okay, I found it. Okay, what's going on there? What are you measuring there, voltage wise?
Yeah.
And that has been a godsend,
You know,
especially with late night calls.
right. Well, and because I go back so far, the cost associated with having a fuse blown indicator was so expensive at the time. Nowadays, it's a lot more affordable. To be honest with you, I'm so mad at seeing a panel nowadays come with no fuse indicators that I wish those were just gone off the face of the planet. I don't know, but I don't know if you have a preference or you care or not. I mean,
Well,
again, it goes back to my fantasy of what a technician should look like, and I'd rather him not have to have a voltmeter with him. But purely fantasy, of course. But
I mean, your technician should have a voltmeter because, hey, sometimes when things aren't powered up, you just need to see if there's voltage there, and they need to understand how to use a multimeter, which that has. I've had some instances where I've had some phone calls where, hey, I'm trying to read the amperage on this, and it won't tell me what the amperage is, and I go, what kind of meter do you have? And they'll tell me. I say, okay, do you have your leads in the right position? And they'll go, huh? I said, okay, first of all, keep your meter out of the circuit. You don't know what you're doing, or I'll make some smart ass comment and they'll get pissed off at me. But usually it stings with them long enough that they next time they go around, they know, hey, before I call Johnny, let me try this the right way. And yeah, anyways.
any issue with having, like, do you have to have, are you a Fluke guy or a Harbor Freight guy would be okay? I mean,
How dare you mention Harbor Freight, Big Rock Candy Mountain stuff.
One thing that confused me is that we would always have the Fluke guy, instrument tech, come in and recalibrate him, whatever the case is, and I could be really ignorant right at them here at the moment, but are they calibrating for, like, if we test 480 volts, does it need to be exactly 184 or 180? Can it be 140 or 79? Do you know what they're calibrating at all?
The calibration isn't really the big thing. It's the safety aspect that goes along with it.
Okay.
You go buy a multimeter from Harbor Freight and it says that it's good to 600 volts. I wouldn't stick that thing on 24 volt DC because it might shock you and get you killed. I mean, it doesn't take much voltage. It's not voltage that you worry about. It's the amperage. But if it runs through you, you're done. If I want to stick a meter in a 480 volt panel, I want to know that the leads are good and it's not going to bite me in the butt.
Yeah, I do have a Harbor Freight unit in my garage right now that I use all the time, but I have replaced the leads on it.
Well, it's not so much that, I mean, there's some stuff that goes on inside the meter itself that keeps it from exploding in your hand.
Yeah, I can see where the importance would be is with 4 to 20 calibration, especially. I mean, I don't like. I mean, I will fight tooth and nail when we do a scale integration into a PLC and we're using a 4 to 20. I generally like the Ethernet signal to get that, so I get a lot more data out of it. But if I do have to use a 4 to 20 signal and I have to be accurate, that's where I can see it's the importance of it.
Well, and what I've also learned too is with smart devices, people don't quite understand. Hey, there's actually two signals to calibrate there. You have your loop that you need to calibrate and the transmitter that needs to be calibrated. There's so many people that'll go, oh yeah, I calibrated the loop, but it's still reading wrong. Well, you need to go in and calibrate the transmitter. Once you calibrate the loop, that loop's done. You shouldn't have to mess with it ever again, unless, it's in a high corrosive area where, maybe the terminals and the copper is starting to get eaten up a little bit. But yeah.
Do you see any more of the 0 to 10 volts at all, or you just think that like majority of if it's just now standardized 4 to 20 and that's it?
You see a lot of the 0 to 10 volt in solar applications still.
Okay.
But even now, that's kind of starting to go away too, because, solar panels have gotten more efficient. They're cheaper. I remember when you struggled to get a 50-watt solar panel on a solar package on a remote site, because I think it was probably $500 back when I started. So you wanted to do it on like a 20-watt solar panel, and your flow computer was already chewing all that up. So adding a pressure transmitter on there, you needed to kind of gain whatever you could gain, because I don't know what the difference is, but there's always been a little bit of power savings with going from 4 to 20 to 1 to 5 or 1 to 10.
Yeah, I only see the 0 to 10 nowadays. If all of a sudden it's like a VFD by itself, and you just kind of go to a pot with a simple start and stop, and then that's it. But to be honest with you, I don't see those applications for myself anymore. It's rare, but that's always defaulted on the VFDs. I don't know what's your thoughts on that though. But
I mean, I very rarely see speed pots on VFDs now. It's mostly done through the display on the outside of the box.
Yeah, I'm with you. That way you get the alarms, you get everything. You just do the little cable and then just panel mount it.
Yep.
The unit on it. Yep, I'm with you. Any brands that you like when you're building the panel? You mentioned Phoenix Contact for the terminals. Is that same thing go for Ethernet, switches?
Oh,
and
yeah.
Supplies and
their power supplies. Their power supplies and UPSs are rock solid. I mean, we can get into what we can do with the UPS and Profinet, Ethernet IP. You can start bringing in, communications off of your UPS, see what's going on, see that you're in a fault, and you can start planning shutdowns and things of that nature just off of one UPS if needed.
Yeah. Now, it's probably been a year or so, but I did look into the UPS that Phoenix Contact has, but it would only shut down Windows-based. I never got into Linux or anything like ESXi, nothing like that. But I could be wrong. They could have changed it by now.
Probably. I mean, and you can program its shutdowns.
But the software seemed really nice for Microsoft products.
Yeah, it is. I haven't had an application when we need it for Linux or anything else.
Sorry. Well, at some point you will.
No,
it's coming.
I know it is.
Let's talk about Induasol. How did you come up with the name Induasol? What transpired when you started your company? How did you come up with this?
Well, I was in a bar, of course. I was tired of where I was working.
Can I say, was that Croft Automation? Was that?
Yeah, Don't bring
Okay.
that up.
All right, sorry.
That's
Well,
that's always a black flag that to this day still hangs over me. That
by the way,
go ahead.
I find it funny that you guys actually called us at one point in time to ask for us for a solution. So that's why I
Yeah.
remember.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, what? And I'll tell you. But hey, this is a perfect example right here of how oil and gas seems to work sometimes. We had put together this crude terminal delivery point, and basically all that was in the scope was we just want the drivers to come up, tell us how much they want, to unload. That's it. Start, stop. We want to kick them out on bad oil. It was one of the things. I was like, perfect. We get on site, and the guy that's over this project walks up and says, "Hey, now that you're here, we need to be able to do all of this. Can we do it? Yes or no?" And I said, we're at dinner, and I'm going, well, I mean, yeah, we can do it, but I don't know. We're going to need a little time to figure that out. I said, but, I mean, we're supposed to be starting this terminal up in 2 weeks. Well, can you do it in 2 weeks? And I said, I don't think so, but we'll give it a try. And I mean, we already had the ability to track the loads and print them off and things of that nature. But when it came into validating the trucking company, the driver, he wanted to validate, hey, if this guy was banned from the terminal, he would never be able to unload even if he went to work for another company because it would track his driver's license number.
Oh, nice.
And luckily, I had a Windows-based OS in the main panel, and we were able to scrounge a few things together last minute. Was it pretty? No. It was ugly. It sucked. It's been this black cloud that lived over me for the last 7 years. And I vowed to never let something like that happen again. I even went out and kind of figured out how to do the exact same thing that he was wanting to do, and do it on the cheap, because they wanted some basic validation, but they didn't need this enterprise level system that Emerson would sell. That would have been, I don't know, $2 or $3 million for them to install. When really all they needed something was to, track people, log it, validate it. And by the way, in about a year and a half, these terminals aren't even going to be in use because all that stuff's going to be pipelined to us instead of trucked to us. The terminals were there as a temporary solution to bring crude into their pipeline and sell it and transport it. And I've come across a few methods. In fact, I've learned a few things with the HMIs that I was using at the time. I could have done it, but it just, at that time, my level of knowledge about database and, wasn't all that great. And I focused on it for a long time and come across a lot of cool stuff and figured out how to do these things efficiently, cost effectively. And, hey, it can be, because on a LAC unit, you can't spend $20,000 for the HMI to be able to read a database, to log things, to print things, to do all the things that you need to do. So there's been a couple pieces of software that I found that I like that handle all of that. I wouldn't scale anything too big with it. I could go back to that same terminal and do it with that same software. That's about as big as I would go. Anything over that, anything above that, I would want to see like a clear SCADA, ignition, or the bigger
Right.
systems handle it from there. And
Gotcha.
once it's in the database, it can be managed from another piece of software.
Right. Gotcha. Very cool. And is this a product that you sell now still, or is this something that
It's a very custom app.
Okay.
I did a saltwater disposal with it 2 years ago, and we're having the truck drivers enter in their ticket information. We still have them manually record everything, but we record it digitally as well, and that's made things a little easier for the operator. Um, and it's always needing to grow. We did a manufacturing company that loads bulk material. We did the same thing for them that already had the software at it, loaded at their system, and it's worked very well for them. So, I mean, but it's more about understanding the process and how to utilize a database, or you don't even really need to use a database. You can utilize other forms of arrays and whatnot
Right.
to achieve the same goal.
Yeah. And then, I mean, it depends on who's going to be analyzing this data, that kind of stuff, whatever. Got it. Because I mean, you could do it on stupid CSV files and that kind of stuff, whatever. Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, if you're not going to use this on a daily type of deal, I mean, there's just cheap solutions out there. Yep.
Yeah, and our HMI softwares are going to advance in the next 5 years. I mean, you know me, I'm a big Proface user. Their blue software that's coming out is it's going to change things. Vector graphics, I mean, OPC UA. They're going to have better SQL integration at some point in time, and it's going to be on a cost-effective platform. I mean, that I think I don't know what their logic engine is going to be. There's talks of JavaScript,
Okay.
things like that embedded in it. So you're going to have a whole suite of tools that you can pull from. I don't know. What is your thoughts about all this advancement in programming code? And by the way, have you used the new Allen Bradley 5380 with the Windows 10 tied to it?
No. So I have not purchased the Panelview in like well over 15 years. No way. And here's, I know this is a sidetracked issue, but HMIs sometimes bug me. I get it. For a machine or a simple application, use an HMI, whatever the case is. But where my company has kind of gone is more of the plant-wide type of a scenario where we would use Ignition to do that. Cost effective as far as scaling out to multiple. Every time a programmer makes one change, it's changed throughout. It's just an incredibly faster to deploy stuff using that. All that being said, and we come from a little bit of different backgrounds, whatever the case is, but I think I'd be kind of curious to see what your thoughts are on this. But every time I come across an Allen Bradley Panelview, the cost is so high for the HMI that they all use the smaller screens. And then with the smaller screen, you can only go so far with it. So you're constantly kind of like going, navigating to one screen to another screen. And, so that, is a maze itself. And then for some odd reason, if you think of all the different brands of HMIs, you got Proface, you got Redline, you got Panelviews, you got, a whole list of them, right? Which one of them has the worst UI experience ever?
Panelview,
and
by far.
And you can make an argument. It's like, oh well, there's more Panelviews out there. That's why you see more of them and that kind of stuff, whatever. But why is it that every time and I'm good, by the way, I'm going to agree with you. And I don't know why they defaulted on like the blue buttons, by the way, but it seems like nobody wants to change the color of that. You will get bright blue colors, bright red colors, and bright green colors. And I don't know why, but I've even seen pink on some screens. And I really wish I could have shown you some of the bad screen design. It's like We all are horrible designers, UI designers. Our first day in our lab, when we get some free software, free trials or whatever the case is, we're the worst. I'm with you there. But these people have been using panel views for a long time, and I'm still not seeing improvement on it. So,
well, I look at it like this. Allen Bradley sells a great controller. They don't,
yes,
in my mind, they don't sell a great HMI. They don't sell a great terminal block. I mean, I think these are all things to put into their ecosystem
sure,
of what they sell. Because then, you know, they can leverage, hey, if you're buying our HMIs, we'll give you a better price on the PLC. Oh, hey, you're buying our terminal blocks, we'll give you a better price on the PLC. These are all the things that are high margin.
right.
And they, I mean, I don't really have too big of a problem if someone says, hey, I need you to program a panel view. The UI, in my opinion, is not as intuitive as it should be. But I can get through it, and I'll go, hey, I just, it shouldn't be this difficult. And to this day, I've done Red Lion, I've done Bear, I've done Uniop, I've done Maple.
Maple system, yep. There's a
With Proface's shortcomings in some certain other areas of their OS and what what I call a canned HMI. Their canned HMI software, GP Pro EX, is the most for general display data, push a button, do this, do that. Hands down, I could pick 5 guys out of a parking lot and then give me 3 days and I can have them programming most HMIs. It may be ugly, but hey, the buttons are going to work. The displays are going to be nice. There's not this big disconnect between, hey, a driver and the tag and whatnot that you sometimes get in the other ones. And by the way, I can go pull a project that was built in GP Pro EX version 1, loaded onto 4.3, and not have to do a effing thing to the project, and it just works. Done.
Is that a stab in Allen Bradley when what was it? Was it version 6 to 7, and you'd have to do a conversion, and then I mean it was just a mess back then. But I mean, of course, I haven't touched one in a long years, just so everybody knows. But anything from 4 was a mess. 5 was starting to get a little bit better, maybe 6, but then 7 was some kind of crazy radical change.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't pointed at Allen Bradley specific, because you can't even go from version 20 to version 30 with their software. Right. That is one of the things that drives me bonkers. I go to work on a machine and I have version 20 loaded and on my computer, and oh, this one's got version 18 on it. Here I am in front of the customer. I have to download the software. I'm waiting on the internet. They're looking over my shoulder going, hey, what's taking so long? We need to get this machine up and going. I'm like, well, these guys haven't figured out how to make their current software backwards compatible yet.
Right. Right.
And yeah.
To go back to it, here, I have taken apart some of the panel views. And I don't know what your experience is on this or not, but backlights. I mean, you can go all the way back to when we were using Panelview Builder 32. Sorry. Did I show off my age here?
You showed off both of our ages because you made me laugh.
But I mean, I just had like screens would start fading away. You have to rip it open and then replace the backlight. And still this day, they still have the same type of backlight issues. You can Google it right now and you go backlight issues, blah, blah, and just flood it. Now, here's what's weird. I've done a lot of HMI red lines, but I've yet to open one of those up. Now, it could be just my experience, whatever the case is, but Proface, have you ever had to like disassemble it and swap it out?
No, and they have in reality, they have a really good controller for their backlight. Turn the LCD off.
Okay.
But these are all things that you, as the person programming the screen, there's two check boxes. Hey, I want it to turn the screen off after 30 minutes of inactivity.
Got it.
Especially when you get out into a solar application and you need that screen to go dark when nobody's there, so you're not just burning little electrons for nothing.
Right. So, by the way, I do give it props. These are easy to open up. I mean,
No.
well, for me, a panel view was easy to open up, to get it to swap out whatever, any kind of replacement parts. But I'm still kind of mad that I have to open it up. Versus a Proface or a Redline, I just don't see it as much.
Well, we have this new technology called LEDs. I don't know what they're using. Are they still using incandescents?
I opened up a 2015 panel view, and the backlight was already dead. So that's what we did.
Wow. I mean,
anyway, I do like how there's different part numbers for the screen versus the processor. I know that's a big thing. I will have to give Proface credit for having the small little, I think it's a 5-inch or a 6-inch.
Oh, so now they have a 7-inch in that modular mounts in a 22 millimeter buttonhole. Okay.
So you just one hole and then boom, that's it.
And it's dual NIC. And the price point for that is like around $700.
Yeah. See, I don't even remember some of the prices on the panel views, but I mean, you go into like a 19 or a 15-inch panel view. I mean, we're talking $4 or $5 grand kind of per se. And this is my problem. I always come into a plant and they've got like scattered panel views all over the place. And it's just like, they've got now, it's been several years and it's like, this panel view's got a different program than this one. This one's got a different program than that one. This one's got, so they're not synchronized. And then, it is what it is. And then it's just, then they start getting in different firmwares because this one's a newer one that they swapped out. This one's a different one that swapped out. And you're just moving parts around the processing to a different screen and having to go up to another firmware because this new screen doesn't work with the old firmware. I mean, it is what it is, but it just, that's where I get to where I hate sometimes HMIs on certain applications where if there's multiple units, it makes more sense to have the same standard industrial PC and ignition and then be done with it. But that's just different applications for different applications.
Well, yeah. And I think in this new world of pick the buzzword of the hour, we have an IPC is nothing. I mean, you look at what a 12-inch panel view probably costs you $6 grand today, right? Would that be about right?
A panel view? I have no idea. Oh, are you talking about the touch PC?
No, just the last time I had a panel view plus, I had to replace one. It was a 12-inch. It had some keypads. I don't have the part number on it, but it was also one that had went end of life too. So I know that they always jack the price up on them. It was $6 grand to buy a replacement, and I'm like, oh my god, you could buy a PC or a PC HMI,
right?
And by the way, now you have the ability to start. Hey, I need to have a little small database here, or I need to throw some sort of software on here to take this machine into the bigger scheme of what I need to do with my plant. I mean, one of the coolest things most underrated things about Proface that people forget about is they have a 7-inch outdoor readable, extreme temperature HMI that we can put a Windows 10 IoT back on the back of it. And we can run, I think they say 4,000 tag system, but we've got
that's a lot of tags for a little HMI.
But we have currently a system that is running 32,000 on it, the tag count system on it. Now the little box is hot as all get out, but hey, it's chooching along. and I can get into why we got into that. That was a poor scope of work as well, or what we were doing with that HMI. But it's 4 years running, and it's still doing its thing, and it's really not that bad. But no, their outdoor screens are amazing. It's a two-piece. Hey, if I needed to be a canned HMI, or what I call a canned HMI, we could run GP Pro EX, or what's going to replace their GP Pro EX. It's called Blue. We could run Blue on it. Extreme temp, sunlight readable, perfect for any scenario that you would ever throw at it. How many screens say NEMA 4X on it, but indoor use only?
Right.
These are, not going to deteriorate in the sun. It's really nice, a really nice screen. The resolutions are nice on it too. And if you wanted to put like say you wanted to use an OnLogic IPC or a Windows server, we can snap an adapter on the back of it. Hey, now that high bright HMI, hey, it's on the network, and it's hosting up the HMI like it's one of the screens from the plant.
And then you're done. So let me ask you this: is it a widescreen or is it a 4:3 ratio?
Widescreen. And you're gonna make me look it up, but yeah, 1360 on the 15-inch is 1366 by 768.
I am not the biggest fan of the 4:3 ratio anymore. I used to work for Best Buy when it was in high school, and that's what we sold back in the day. And then as soon as you go to a widescreen, it's just like all of our monitors, all of our PCs, all of our laptops, all of that. But then for some odd reason, we still seem to be selling these 4:3 ratio screens. And so when a customer goes, hey, I want that exact same, can you project that onto this big screen or this big monitor or whatever the case is? And maybe we do, but the ratio is not right. So now it's distorted, whatever. I really just would rather, just like, I only want, I want regulations to only sell fuse terminals with blown
fuse indicators. Yes.
But I also want 16:9 ratios like standard. So, we've kind of standardized on it. So there's just a lot of associated cost with this conversion. That's all. Yeah. Anyway, I'm trying to save money. That's the big thing. And it just like on the tail end of it, when plants they go from cheap to having a bunch of small little HMIs scattered around in the plant. They worked and they did their purpose, but now you want, wide variety, SCADA system, whatever the case is. It's just it's a completely different application.
Well, in those little HMIs, regardless, and we might be able to get into a tiff on this one, but those little HMIs still serve a purpose. When the SCADA system goes kaput, or a network cable gets cut, how do you operate your machine? That's it's one of my big. I've had a couple of customers talk about trying to run logic in the cloud to run facilities and things of that nature, and I go, okay, yeah. Do you remember the first iterations of like wireless IO and how horrible that was for the industry? Spills and things of that nature. We're gonna go through that again before people start learning to, if I have a comm fail or I don't hear back from the mothership, in 30 seconds, I'm gonna go back to a fail-safe position. And then what are you gonna do? Hey, my facility can't talk to Amazon Web Services right now. I can't build product.
Yeah. Besides monitoring, I don't see any going anywhere. I'd say there's no guarantee on that connection, so therefore you're gonna have a local system handling it. You might be taking some data and sending it up, but yeah, I'm with you. Local control, remote control, that seems kind of crazy to me.
Oh yeah,
I do see that there's a slick way where, say, say if we're an Allen Bradley, which we do, we use Allen Bradley products for controls, that kind of stuff, whatever. But say if I controlled lots of different sites, whatever the case is, I do see to where we can use we remote into a cloud unit that then we can actually say, hey, I want to add these features to it, and then send that program to multiple different sites, and it just automatically just batches it, and you can just leave for the day, and it will just systematically go through every single site, updating it to another new firmware, or version.
Now that right there would be
Slick.
Yeah, be
That
slick.
it's not controlling it from it, but you did make the program change once, and then it obviously appropriates throughout. But anyway, yep. What about Allen Bradley certifications? What's your thoughts on that? I mean, go back years and years ago, all of us would have to be sent to an Allen Bradley training course for like 4 days, $1,800. And, at the end of it, you got your certification, but, obviously you just touched it.
Yeah. I mean, you get a certification that says, hey, I attended that class. I've been to a class for Signet. I've been to a couple of classes on Clear SCADA. I mean, did I learn something from those classes? Yes. Could I go and put together a million tag SCADA system with one of those platforms? No. I mean, I'd be dangerous at best. It goes back to what I said earlier. If you have the drive and you have the want, and you've surrounded yourself around people who are working in the industry, you'll get there. You'll figure it out. You'll find an old busted controller that half the outputs don't work, but hey, you know what? I can plug into it. I can make the lights dance on the thing, and and I'm going to tinker with it. I mean, just never stop trying to be better at what you can do. Because you went to an Allen Bradley certification class doesn't mean you know what you're doing. Just like how many engineers that you've worked with, they graduated, they got their engineering degree, and then next thing you know, they're like, hey Brant, can you do this for me? I don't know what I'm doing. It's and maybe that I'm not trying to like call out any engineers. I'm just saying, if you're passionate about it, you'll be good at it, regardless of a degree, regardless of the certification, and you'll be able to do things.
Right.
And that's the thing that, like, when I'm helping someone try to find a technician or whatnot, or I'm looking for somebody, those are the questions that I ask is, hey, how much do you tinker with things? Are you a self-learner? I mean, if I gave you a project, are you gonna? And I said, hey, I need you to come up with a function for a PLC that you can duplicate 500 times. Are you gonna go home at night, research it, look up different ways to do it, get more involved in that function, and go, okay, are you going to push yourself, or are you going to look for someone else to do it for you?
Fair enough. Yeah. And then any suggestions on where they can get started if they were kind of like fresh out of school? Do you have any recommendations?
I mean, there's a few people that are online that are, they'll sell little training kits and software and, some read-alongs. But the best bet is to find somebody, look for the job, look for the people that are looking for automation techs. Be very cautious about, what the job description is. Maybe try to go to work for a panel shop, go to work for someone like you and say, hey, can I come learn from the best? And I'll work for free for a little bit if I got to. I know your partner would probably love to take advantage of that.
We declined the guy. There was one time where, yeah, I got offered free service. Yeah, no.
Just to learn it, huh?
Yeah, the problem is that for a company, it still costs me. It still costs, and it cost me quite a bit. Once I set them up with the laptop and all access and all kinds of stuff, it was significant. And so, and I you can have your debate on, like, do you train somebody or whatever the case is, but we were, as a smaller company, we were needing a mid-level employees, experience level.
Someone that's at least had a couple of, beat to the face experiences. And
yeah, we were, at the time, we were trying to somebody I can actually just hit the ground running, rather than well, I've done my fair share of taking people from knowing nothing all the way up, and I'm not against that, but right at the moment we were just in a situation where we had to go.
Yeah, well, and that's kind of what I'm saying. Maybe it's not you this time. Maybe it's
Right.
another company that's looking for help. I mean, there's plenty of work out there from what I'm seeing, and if you want to get in the industry, I mean, it's up to you. Go start making phone calls and say, "Hey, I've been playing with Python." That might at least get you an interview.
Oh yeah, easy. Yep, I'm with you.
Because if you can run through some programs on Python, I'm pretty sure we can teach you ladder logic.
Well, I mean, how do you feel about revision control? Do you use it or not at the moment?
Not at the moment. We're still a pretty small company. I mean, and we can keep track of things internally without having to do revision control. But at some point in time, that's going to become an issue.
Yeah, I see a lot more of it coming from the .NET Java programmers, where as soon as they come into our world and be like, you don't have anything to branch or to merge in and to make revision controls. This seems like a tool that they use all the time, so they're a little weird. They look at us a little weird when all of a sudden they come into our world. That's all.
Yeah, and I don't know. Is there any good platforms to do revision control, say for your function blocks, AOIs, and things like that?
There is a new company that, and I apologize, I don't have it in front of me, but they have been. It does do revision control to where you can start doing merging and splitting and that kind of stuff. Whatever. We do. Alan Bradley came out with a product called I think it was Vault or Asset Center. That's what it was called. And it was pretty slick. It would, obviously it was gravitated towards Alan Bradley, whatever the case is, but it would start being a central system that would actually, know that if you checked it out or checked it in, that kind of stuff, and it would log that. Of course, it was specialized on Alan Bradley equipment, so therefore there was some perks to it. Maybe it might show you the differences between the two and that kind of stuff, whatever. But that's a very expensive piece of software. So we've defaulted on an open source SVN Tortoise. So that's what we're using right now at the moment. But as I see more younger programmers and they get used to like GitHub and that kind of stuff, whatever, I wouldn't be surprised if it was somehow associated with that.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, the revision control, as soon as you start getting into like 4 or 5 programmers that are sometimes getting into the project, sometimes getting out of the project, and it moves in weird ways. And so the revision control is just how it's going to has to happen. That's all.
See, most of our projects are so small, we don't need multiple programmers to work on the same project at one time.
Right.
And so I could see that becoming what?
Yeah, for the added complexity. Yeah, I can see it. Yep. Yep. I don't know if you wanted to stop now, or was that enough chunk? I needed some water.
Yeah, I need to go to the bathroom. So.
Okay.
Here, I can, I'll stop my recording.